Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on Death Pass, playing as the High Elves against the forces of the Lizardmen, or more specifically in this situation, the Last Defenders. And recently it was requested that I do some High Elf gameplay. I don't really play High Elves too much. They're honestly not my cup of tea, not really my faction, but against Lizardmen, life can definitely be a little bit difficult. I suspect it's going to get even more difficult with the upcoming patch, introducing some new bits of nastiness for the lizards. But this is one of the builds I really do enjoy using against them. It's very important, in my opinion, to bring at least some Sisters of Avalorn. You can get away without it. I have seen builds that don't involve any shooting at all against lizards, in fact. Just rely very heavily on cavalry and monster play, that sort of thing. But I definitely think Sisters of Avalorn are a very nice unit for this match. So our build here is kind of centered around making them work. For my lord, I'm rolling with Teclis. I love Teclis. I think he's probably one of the better lords out there and more balanced than Alariel for sure. He's got, in this situation, he's got his Shield of Sapphire, Wild Heart, as well as Kindle Flame. He also does have Greater Arcane Conduit, Net of a Mintalk, Enfeebling Foe, and Regrowth. The Regrowth, very important to keep the Nobles tip-top shape. Enfeebling Foe, good for debuffing enemies if I'm stuck in a bad fight. And then Potion of Troy just to heal him up and keep Teclis in good shape. Now alongside him, two Nobles, not much to be said for these guys. They're great anti-large tools if I need to hunt down a Carnosaur. Now, they won't win against a Carnosaur in a 1v1, but they can really put a dent into him. They can help against enemy Cav, they can help against Croxagores, units like that, and they're very good for that. Now, besides that, and the Noble squad here, frontline composed entirely of High Elf Spearmen. This is actually a tournament legal build, I do believe, so if you're looking for tournament builds, this actually isn't too terrible. A frontline are composed of Spearmen with a few chevrons. They're not going to win any beauty contests. They'll lose to everything except skinks, basically. But they can buy you a lot of time. They can really stall against Saurus. These sort of Saurus-heavy builds here really will struggle to punch through this. And they're backed up by a single unit of White Lions here. The White Lions, not the most amazing great weapon unit in the game, but they can definitely chew through Saurus pretty effectively. It's one of the matchups where they do pretty well. And they do have some pretty nice mobility. They'll just help stiffen this front line up a little bit. Beyond that, two Sisters of Avalorn. These guys will synergize really nicely with the Kindle Flame on Teclis. And finally, we do have some Dragon Princes as well as Fireborn on the flanks. Fireborn with that anti-large bonus is really, really nice. The nice thing about Dragon Princes also is they've got fire resistance, which makes them synergize well with Sister of Avalorn. And they're also good for running down Skink Skirmishers, which can be a huge pain in your rear in this matchup. Whether that would be chameleon skinks, normal skink skirmishers, whatever. They're just such a pain to chase after, or have to waste ammo. Precious shots on Sister of Avalorn is not something you want to waste on skink skirmishers. So for my opponent here, perhaps a little bit of a new player. He's rolling with Croc-Gar. Now, Croc-Gar, honestly, a terrible choice. Though without healing, definitely a bit of a risk here. He's got Deadly Onslaught, Spawning of Zodal, Cold-Blooded, as well as Swiftness of Etzel. So fairly stripped down. Croc-Gar, though, still an absolute beast in melee. Is definitely going to be able to take any of my troops to Pound Town if given the opportunity. Alongside him, well, in the front line, it's a bunch of Saurus, some Saurus warriors with shields, some Saurus spears, a single unit of Croxagores to provide some AP punch. These guys are actually not a bad unit in this matchup. I actually do like using them against and in fact, they're not terrible against Phoenix Guard, stacked on top of infantry. They're really good against Swordmasters, units like that. They'll just mulch them. Finally, on the flanks, my opponent does have some Carnosaurs, two feral Carnosaurs, one on either end. With Croc-Gar's Cold-Blooded, they're fairly reliable, in fact. It's nice to bring an extra hero, in my opinion, to make sure to keep him from rampaging, but they'll definitely be able to put punch through my Noble or Dragon Prince units like that. Finally, some Skink Skirmishers, and these guys just a nuisance and a pain in the rear to deal with. It is worth noting, though, that Carnosaurs have pretty terrible leadership. If we look here at their leadership, right now it's 65 because flanks are secured, but the base is only 60. That's basically state troop levels. Now, obviously, they're not going to take leadership penalties for fear or terror because they've got that, but they're definitely a bit susceptible. My opponent here is pushing forward, so we're immediately going to start pounding away at the Croxagores with our Sisters because this is the most convenient big target available. And this choke point here is definitely going to be very beneficial for us because it's going to prevent my opponent from pushing through, just getting on top of me. Now here I did see that my opponent is pushing around with the Carnosaur, so you can see here we collapse backward with our spears to cover that flank. In the meantime, this Carnosaur here pushing right through the pipe. The Croxagores are going to dive in, but the spears were braced. This is not something you ever want to be doing. And now the Croxagores are going to start getting punished by the Withering Fire. Over here, the Nobles are going to break this charge from the Saurus Spears. Definitely not where they want to be, though. A bit of a misplay there on my part. Well, over here, the Dragon Princes commit against the Saurus, do a bit of damage, and they'll definitely be able to scrape through and do a little bit of hurt there. That said, Crocky G here pushing through, being an absolute pain in the rear. You can see the Croxagores rampaging, the Carnosaur pounding through my boys there. But Croc-Gar here, despite his efforts to shut down the Noble, is getting pinned down. We hit him with a net. That means that Kindle Flame is now active. He's got 22% vulnerability to fire damage, which of course Sisters do. He does try to pop his Swiftness of Etzel. but it's not going to help him here. He can't escape because he's pinned down. And he's taking fire from the sisters. He's getting beaten down by the nobles. He's getting bogged down with the spears. Now, unfortunately, the noble here getting torn apart. Despite being netted down, he's still able to move because reasons. I don't know why. Game is well balanced or something. But you can see Krokar is getting torn apart. He's dropping very quickly like a brick. We hit our noble here with a regrowth, which will heal him. And Crocky G at this point is basically a goner. He's going to flee. And this is a very, very big win for us. Anytime on the flank here, the Fireborn have gotten into the cookie jar. They're kind of crushing these chameleons, these King's Skirmishers. Not exactly how you want to be using your Fireborn, but definitely important. In the meantime, the Spearmen here pushing through against the Terra Spears, but we get an intercept there. And our overall fire for the sisters here, forcing off Crocky. And over here, the Dragon Prince have committed against this Carnosaur. And you can see alongside those spears, with no charge bonus from the Carnosaur, with no support for the Carnosaur, he's actually getting torn apart. Dragon Princes with their very high melee stats, the fact that he's only got 95 armor, they're actually going to start tearing up this Carnosaur. And especially as his frenzy drops because his leadership is dropping because it's just so low baseline. The Carnosaur's struggling. It's definitely an issue. Over here, the other Carnosaur does push through. He tries to go after poor Teclis, but we nail him there and start shooting him to death with our archers. Unfortunately, a bit of a situation here in the flanks. The spears definitely struggling, not able to hold against the Kroxigors and the Sar spears. We're just piling through. So definitely still some room for my opponent to bounce back. The Fireborn here do actually intercept Krokgar and are going to be running him off the field, jabbing him to death with those fiery lances. They're actually going to be able to bring him down here. I do believe Krokgar dies, so he's getting completely escorted off the field. The Skinks are not going to be able to save him, and this is a bit disastrous for my opponent. Elsewhere, the Kroxigors, he's pushing through, but you can see we actually shift our Dragon Princes over. My opponent has nothing to stop the rampage on the Carnosaur, so it's just tied down. And the sisters here running for dear life from the Kroxigors. I see them coming in, so I'm actually going to shift flanks, swing around with the Dragon Princes. The sisters are going to keep running. Now, sisters have pretty good melee stats, but you don't want them fighting Kroxigors. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. But the Kroxigors there are also going to get pummeled. I wonder what the leadership is on Kroxigors. Is it decent? It's 70. So the Kroxigors actually have a higher leadership than the Feral Carnosaur. You can see here the Carnosaur being escorted from the field by Teclis, so definitely pretty dishonorable. Shame for display. Completely shattered and gone. And shortly Teclis is going to shift over after this Carnosaur to remove him from play as well. The Kroxigors escorted off the field down to 3 models, completely dumpstered. And at this point, yes, my opponent still has some models. Now you can see over here the White Lines of Krace actually butchered these Sars warriors in their fight, but now they're going to swing back, deal with these Sars because they really can't catch these Kings. Now the Dragonborn or the Fireborn, not the Dragonborn, the Fireborn are coming back after wiping out Krokgar. Here in the pits, the spears are just buying time. Now, obviously, at this point, we're definitely very badly beaten up. If we look at the balance of power, well, actually, it doesn't look that bad. We've lost about, about 350 troops. Most of those in our infantry. We've only got 1 healthy unit of spears there. But the thing is, it just doesn't matter at this stage. Sure, there's a bunch of Sars, but we have all these Sisters of Avalorn, almost a full unit here, a completely full unit over there. The last Carnosaur is being forced off the field here by Teclis. So, Teclis is an absolute boss. Actually gets a charge off and does damage, weirdly enough. It, rallied there. But it shatters. It's gone. And now my opponent, he's doing his best. He's trying to pummel through these infantry. But now we're going to be able to sort of cycle charge these Sars. They don't have the leadership from Krokgar. The Dragon Princes, as well as Fireborn, can get some nasty recharges in here and start buckling leadership. And it's going to be too little too late. Complete collapse for the Sars. And a victory for the High Elves. So this is definitely one of those, in my opinion, decent builds against lizards. You've got a lot of tools to crack big monsters, which are basically a must. Lizardmen have to bring, and this might change in the upcoming patch, we'll see, though I don't actually think so. I don't really think it's going to change. But Lizardmen do have to bring some big monsters against High Elves. Especially Phoenix Guard will just wreck lower-end lizard troops. Now, perhaps the new Temple Guard, which I do believe is a club and board variant, which does magic damage and has a bunch of abilities and it's really strong. Maybe that's going to start evening things out. But right now, Sars or the Lizardmen really have to invest in monsters to crack big, high-end, elite High Elf troops. And you might not bring them. You might not bring any high-end troops. In this case, you can see I didn't bring any, but the Lizards have to invest in that. It's a factor you have to consider as a Lizardman player. So you have to bring Carnosaurs or Kroxigors or units like that. And for that, the Sisters are just such a good unit. They can just crack them. And Spears, well, they're just going to buy you time. They stall. They can stall Feral Carnosaur if it rampages. They can bog down Sars Warriors. They're never going to win against these units, but they just buy you so much time. White Lines of Krace, not a bad stiffening tool. Nobles, decent enough at hunting Carnosaurs. And the Fireborn and Dragon Prince is just such a good tool to hunt down these big monsters. And as you saw there, the Dragon Prince has actually dealt with the Feral Carnosaur pretty handily, despite that not really being their specialty. That's not really what Dragon Princes are meant to do, but they did it. They definitely achieved it. Teclis, really good unit here as well, just for his nets and his enfeebling foe and regrowth and all that. For my opponent, well, my main critique here is the lack of a caster, obviously. You want a caster. You got to have a caster, in my opinion, in this matchup. This isn't a match where you cut a caster. How you do it, well, that's up to you. You can bring a skink chief, or sorry, skink priest. You can bring a Salon Mage Priest. Obviously, his last defender, you can't bring Mazdamundi, but if you do normal Lizardmen, you can bring Mazdamundi. It doesn't matter what lord you decide to bring, though. You need to, in my opinion, bring a caster. You need something to help you against high elf elites. And really, you don't want to be forced to push your lord in against a bunch of angry Sisters of Avalorn and this sort of stuff. You can see the Sisters here gained 1 and 2 chevrons. That's how much damage they were doing. They got almost all of their ammo off. They completely slaughtered the Crocsagors, the Crocgar, Carnosaur. These units got completely eradicated. The Sisters basically earned their value back 3 times over. Probably, I don't know. Probably close to 2 or 3 times over. And you can't allow that to happen. You want to bring a caster. You want to bring, in my opinion, some sort of backline disruption. Honestly, skinks are a decent enough choice. If you can get them into the backline, if you can escort them with some cav of your own. We'll definitely see how exactly things pan out with the upcoming patch. And that might shake things up for the Lizardmen. You might have new options. You might be able to roast the elves with the Salamander. Obviously, Salamander is not a good choice against princes, but you can deal with princes in other ways. Having an ability to kill models with a fireball effect from the Salamanders, that might even the playing field. Who knows? Being able to use the Engine of the Gods, the vortexes from the Ark of Sotek, it might have a significant impact on the meta. I don't know. Definitely looking forward to see how it pans out. But for now, you definitely want to bring a caster. And as Elves, this is a sort of build that works reasonably well. So, regardless, well played to Funky Emmett here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it entertaining and perhaps gives you some ideas on how to handle this matchup. If you enjoyed, as usual, don't hesitate to leave a like, subscribe, and share. If you have any comments, any critique, any questions, don't hesitate to put them down below, and I'll respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.